wild hypothetical. Let's
All right.
say the candidate wasn't part of the government. Let's say the candidate did have a lot of economic experience. Let's say the candidate did deal with crises. Let's say the candidate had a plan to deal with the challenges in the here and now.
You sneaky. You're running as an outsider.
I am an outsider.
Mark Carney isn't just another Canadian Prime Minister. He didn't come up through the usual political ranks. He didn't grind it out in Parliament for years. He stepped in from the outside, straight from the apex of global finance, and took over at a moment when Canada was teetering between crisis and transformation.
This is no time for politics as usual. This is
Mark Carney pitched himself as an outsider, not a politician, but someone who would have the skills needed to meet the moment.
Carney's expertise in global finance and experience in geopolitics is a massive asset for these difficult modern times. Those who know him back him as the man for the moment, the man to lead a nation in crisis.
He's absolutely the man for the times. He is a brilliant economist. He's handled crises, the global financial crisis when he was governor of the Bank of Canada. He's handled the Brexit crisis when he was governor of the Bank of England. He's really good at handling tough times.
Who is Mark Carney? What exactly makes him the leader we need right now? Why are people saying he's the man for the times? Here are 10 facts that reveal the man now steering Canada through its most uncertain moment in decades. 1. He's Canada's first Prime Minister from the Territories, and that's more than just trivia. Mark Carney was born in Fort Smith, Northwest Territories in 1965, making him the first Canadian Prime Minister ever born in the Territories. It's a detail that might seem small until you understand what it means. Fort Smith is remote, sparsely populated, politically sidelined. Like much of the North, it's a place where decisions made in Ottawa feel distant, slow, or irrelevant. Carney's parents were educators, his father a school principal, his mother a teacher, and the family eventually moved to Edmonton. But those early years gave Carney a lasting perspective on how disconnected government can be from everyday life in the country's furthest reaches.
I need every single Canadian to say it is not okay that the territories live like third world countries, that we do not have the same services that people in the South have. So please, everyone raise your voice, because I need the federal government to hear. We are Canadians and we deserve the same. When our community...
That northern lens is part of what sets him apart. He's not a career politician shaped by the power corridors of central Canada. He's a leader who grew up knowing what it means to be on the outside looking in. 2. He's not a career politician. He's a crisis-tested economist built for this exact moment. Mark Carney isn't your typical prime minister. He earned his economics degree at Harvard, his doctorate at Oxford, and spent over a decade at Goldman Sachs navigating global markets. Then came the crash. In 2008, as the world plunged into financial chaos, Carney took over as governor of the Bank of Canada, guiding the country through the crisis with cool precision. 5 years later, he became the first non-British governor of the Bank of England, leading one of the world's top economies through Brexit and turbulent global shifts.
The people of the United Kingdom have voted to leave the European Union.
He's the only person in history to run 2 G7 central banks, and he did it while earning a reputation for calm, clarity, and competence. Now in a world defined by economic uncertainty, climate disruption, war, and rising populism, Carney is uniquely equipped to lead. He understands the system from the inside, but he's not owned by it. In a time when trust in institutions is crumbling, he brings something rare to the table: experience that actually matches the scale of the problems we face. This isn't just a new prime minister, it's a different kind of leadership, built for a world on edge. 3. He didn't just win the leadership, he was drafted to save a sinking ship. Mark Carney didn't slog through years in Parliament. He didn't fight a tough leadership campaign. He was instantly the frontrunner to replace Justin Trudeau. He didn't even sit as an MP. And yet, in March 2025, he became Prime Minister of Canada. How? The country was reeling, inflation stubborn, housing out of reach, public trust fading, and international tensions rising fast. After nearly a decade in power, Justin Trudeau's Liberals were floundering, their polling in freefall. Behind closed doors, party insiders saw the writing on the wall. Trudeau's brand was fading, and the next election looked unwinnable.
Cannot be the one to carry the Liberal standard into the next election.
Carney will now take over and lead the Liberals into that election.
Respected globally, steady under pressure, untainted by political scandal. He was sworn in as Prime Minister on March 14, 2025, backed by the existing Liberal majority in Parliament. Bring in a heavyweight who could restore confidence, reset the agenda, and reconnect with a public exhausted by years of political drift. 4. His first move? Kill the carbon tax, at least the part Canadians feel most. Mark Carney made one thing clear from day one. He wasn't here to coast on climate credentials or ride out Trudeau's legacy. On his very first day in office, he announced the repeal of the consumer-facing portion of the federal carbon tax, the part that hit gas, groceries, and heating bills.
We will be eliminating the Canada fuel charge, the consumer fuel charge, immediately.
For years, Carney had been a global leader in climate finance. He chaired the Glasgow Financial Alliance for Net Zero, advised the UN, and helped design frameworks for climate risk disclosure. So when he gutted a signature climate policy, critics were stunned. Was this a betrayal of everything he'd stood for?
This will make a difference to hard-pressed Canadians, but it is part of a much bigger set of measures that this government is taking to ensure that we fight against climate change, that our companies are competitive, and the country moves forward. So it's my honor, on behalf of my colleagues, to sign this order.
Carney's answer was blunt. Climate policy has to work not just for the planet, but for the people. With inflation still biting and public frustration at a boiling point, he argued that punishing consumers at the pump wasn't just unpopular, it was unsustainable. The rebates stayed, industrial pricing stayed, but the direct tax at the pump? Gone. It was a dramatic pivot and a message to Canadians. He's watching the price of gas like everyone else. 5. He was headhunted to run the Bank of England, becoming the first foreigner to ever hold the job. In 2013, Mark Carney pulled off something no one in Canadian public life had done before. He was tapped to lead the Bank of England, becoming the first non-Briton in its 300-year history to take the helm. The appointment stunned the British establishment. Here was a Canadian, an outsider, handed the keys to one of the oldest and most powerful central banks in the world. At the time, the UK was still crawling out from under the wreckage of the 2008 financial crisis. Confidence was shaky, growth was fragile. The choice of Carney sent a signal. Britain wanted steady hands and global credibility, and Carney had both.
While at the Bank of Canada, Time magazine named him one of the world's most influential people in 2010 for helping keep the country's banks safe through the global financial crisis.
But things only got more turbulent. In 2016, Britain voted to leave the European Union. The Brexit referendum sent shockwaves through global markets, triggering a currency crash and political chaos. Carney, in the middle of it all, became a voice of calm and pragmatism. While politicians fought over slogans, he kept interest rates steady, liquidity flowing, and investor panic at bay. Through it all, Carney remained focused on one thing: keeping the system from falling apart. Few central bankers have been tested like he was, and even fewer emerged with their reputation stronger. His time in London cemented his status as a rare kind of leader, one who doesn't just talk stability, but delivers it when it counts. 6. He pivoted Canada away from its US dependency and toward a new European alliance. Most new Canadian prime ministers make their first foreign trip to Washington. It's practically a ritual, not Mark Carney. Within days of taking office in March 2025, Carney boarded a plane to Paris and London instead, signaling a dramatic shift in Canada's foreign policy focus. The message was clear: the world is changing, and so is Canada's place in it. In June 2025, Carney took that shift a step further by co-signing the new EU-Canada Defence Partnership, a landmark agreement that deepens military cooperation, intelligence sharing, and joint cyber capabilities between Ottawa and Brussels. He also announced the launch of negotiations on a broader strategic partnership agreement, covering trade, digital policy, energy, and green technology, positioning Canada as a key transatlantic player in a post-Brexit, post-COVID, post-America First world. Why the pivot? Carney, a seasoned global operator, sees a world where U.S. leadership is increasingly unstable and multipolar alliances are the future. With tensions rising between the West and authoritarian regimes like Russia and China, Carney is betting on Europe as Canada's most natural long-term ally, not just economically, but strategically. It's a bold shift for a country so tightly bound to American markets. But for Carney, the age of quiet dependence is over. 7. He knows how to handle Trump, not by provoking him, but by outmaneuvering him. Mark Carney isn't just Canada's Prime Minister. He's one of the most internationally seasoned leaders on the world stage. And in a world where Donald Trump is once again reshaping the global order, Carney brings something rare: the ability to deal with Trump on Trump's terms and still win.
No. Well, I still believe that, but takes two to tango, right? As a real estate developer, I'm a real estate developer at heart. When you get rid of that artificially drawn line, somebody drew that line many years ago with like a ruler, just a straight line right across the top of the country. When you look at that beautiful formation when it's together,
if I may, as you know from real estate, there are some places that are never for sale.
That's true.
We're sitting in one right now, Buckingham Palace, that you visited as well.
That's true.
And having met with the owners of Canada over the course of the campaign last several months, it's not for sale, won't be for sale ever.
Carney understands Trump's playbook. He knows the art of the bluff, the importance of optics, and the obsession with the deal.
Carney, have you spoken to the president today yet, sir?
No, I didn't speak to the president.
Any reaction to the news he put on Truth Social today?
We'll continue to conduct these complex negotiations in the best interests of Canadians. It's a negotiation.
He's not trying to fight Trump with slogans. He's using deep financial knowledge, diplomatic skill, and an unshakable sense of Canada's long-term interests to keep the relationship tough, measured, and effective. In a world full of leaders who either cave to Trump or clash with him for show, Carney walks the line and wins the negotiation. 8. He's a best-selling author who challenged the very foundation of modern capitalism. In 2021, Mark Carney published Values: Building a Better World for All, a dense, ambitious book that quickly became an international bestseller.
This book is just out. It's called Values: Building a Better World for All. And it brings his book. Start by reading what I think is sort of the heart of the argument you make in the book. We'll read an excerpt. For over 12 years, you write, I had the privilege and challenge of being a G7 governor, first in Canada and latterly in the UK. During this time, I saw kingdoms of gold rise and fall. I led global reforms to fix the fault lines that caused the financial crisis, worked to heal the malignant culture at the heart of financial capitalism, and began to address both the fundamental challenges of the Fourth Industrial Revolution and the existential risks from climate change. I felt the collapse in public trust in elites, globalization, and technology, and I became convinced that these challenges reflect a common crisis in values and that radical changes are required to build an economy that works for all.
It wasn't your typical political memoir. It was a serious, idea-driven work that tackled a fundamental problem. We've built an economic system that knows the price of everything, but the value of nothing. Drawing on his experience leading the Bank of Canada, the Bank of England, and advising global climate initiatives, Carney argued that capitalism has drifted away from community, trust, and sustainability, and towards short-term profit at any cost. His solution? A values-driven system that rewards long-term thinking, protects the planet, and puts people before quarterly earnings. Values positioned Carney as more than a central banker. It revealed a public intellectual, unafraid to take on the biggest questions of our time. 9. He's rebuilding Canada's military and asserting Canada's power on the global stage. For years, Canada's defense posture lagged behind its rhetoric. NATO allies grumbled, Arctic security slipped, procurement systems stalled. Canada was seen as principled, but soft. Mark Carney is rewriting that story. Since taking office, he He's launched the most significant military revitalization in a generation. Billions have been committed to modernizing Canada's Navy, Air Force, and cyber defense systems. Long-stalled procurement programs, fighter jets, surveillance systems, Arctic patrol ships have been fast-tracked. And for the first time in years, Canada is on track to meet NATO's 2% defense spending target, not in vague future promises, but in hard numbers. But Carney isn't just upgrading equipment, he's upgrading Canada's reputation. At the 2025 G7 summit held in Banff, Alberta, Carney didn't just host, he led.
Welcome to Kananaskis and the 2025 G7 Leaders Summit. I'm pleased all leaders are here, honored by your presence. In my home province, Alberta, in the heart of the Canadian Rockies. Thank you, colleagues. We have some work to do, which will begin in a moment. Thank you.
Against the backdrop of rising authoritarian aggression, he pressed allies to take collective defense seriously, to invest in democratic resilience, and to treat climate security as national security. 10. His vision for Canada isn't about the next election, it's about the next generation. Mark Carney didn't come to office with a checklist of promises. He came with a blueprint, a bold, long-range plan to reshape Canada for the world that's coming, not the one we're leaving behind. Carney has made it clear, in a time of global uncertainty and rapid change, Canada needs to build faster, smarter, and with more ambition than ever before. He's championing nation-building projects, expanded rail, modernized ports, clean energy corridors, and even new pipelines, not for political optics, but to ensure Canada can move energy, goods, and people efficiently across a vast and growing country.
Prime Minister Mark Carney can now say he kept his first major political promise, turning legislation to fast-track major projects into law by Canada Day. Bill C-5 passed the Senate yesterday and received royal assent.
Is it your pleasure, honourable senators, to adopt the motion? Adopté.
The bill is aimed at boosting Canada's economy and reducing dependence on the United States. Part of it opens up interprovincial trade barriers, but it also makes it easier for the government to greenlight projects that it deems to be in the national interest, projects like pipelines, mines, and highways.
And behind it all is a deeper vision he's calling Canada Strong, a unifying national project that ties climate action, economic growth, and democratic renewal together under one banner. One Canadian economy. Mark Carney's vision for Canada is clear. Bold investments, big ideas, and long-term thinking that put the country's future first. He's not just leading for today, he's shaping a Canada that can thrive for generations to come. Like and subscribe for more videos about Canada.